Okay, so the first lesson we kind of looked at a really simple kind of exercise around looking at different any kind of chord shape on the fretboard, and then playing like a kind of a target tone type of exercise around it, that type of thing, and pretty straightforward. The second time around, we started looking at, asking the question, what kind of chord shapes would be handy to know? And I think I laid out 12 chord shapes, like 12 different ways to do a major seventh chord. And that's in the PDF of that lesson as well. And for any of those 12, any of those major seventh chords, you can adjust the notes in them to turn them into a minor seventh or a dominant seventh or a minor 7 flat 5 and all that kind of stuff. I've included in the PDF today just the final group of voicings that I think it's handy to know, and that's the only ones that I'm going to cover in all of these lessons. And it brings you up to a total of, I guess, 20 different chord shapes that are handy, that I think are handy to know. It's a bit of a tall order, but you'll find that it'll just kind of give you a lot of facility to play around the neck and grab different kind of things. So from last time around, we were looking at chord shapes where all the notes were on adjacent strings. So on the bottom 4 strings here, we've like those kind of shapes, like sort of major 7 type shapes. The only difference with the ones that I'm putting in the PDF today is they're not going to be on totally adjacent strings, but there's going to be the first string not playing the next string, and then the 3rd, 5th, and 7th will be the chord. All they are is different placement of these same 4 notes of the 7th chord. There's nothing complicated going on here, and the best way to think about it is, that first day you picked up a guitar, if someone said to you, "Hey, do you want me to teach you a chord?" And I'll teach you an E chord or whatever. That's the only thing that's going on here. Unfortunately, it's happening 20 times, but you'll find it will have great value for your playing to just be able to really easily grab different kind of chords in any kind of situation, and getting a real sense of beautiful voice leading and things you can do with chords and stuff like that. In terms of practicing this stuff, because it's a bit of a tall order, right? Like, I'm basically suggesting you do a couple of things. One is to know all these voicings up and down the neck, and I guess to be able to do them in any kind of position or whatever, but we can kind of get into that more later. But basically just learning all these voicings up and down the neck, that's the first thing. And the second thing is getting comfortable about adjusting these voicings so so if you've got a major 7th, if I flatten the 7th, becomes a dominant 7th. If I flatten the 5th, it becomes a dominant 7 flat 5, that type of thing. To be able to sort of manipulate these voicings and grab them in different ways. So it's probably quite a tall order of stuff to learn there, but it probably will really help your kind of playing. These 2 things are really the rudimentary kind of things that you want to kind of get under your belt before things can get interesting. So usually with students, I probably get them to do a few key things in terms of just getting the basics right. And it's kind of the idea, I guess, of like, if we're going to go somewhere cool, let's just spend a little bit of time learning how to drive the car. It's like that kind of metaphor or simile or whatever, I guess. The other thing I think is really important, which I'll talk about next time, so it's basically just a little bit dexterity, a bit of chord shapes. The other thing that I tend to get students started on is learning how to read music. And that will just have, it'll just have a lot of benefit for you for all sorts of reasons. You can go in all sorts of directions, just opens things up, makes life kind of a lot easier. But I'll talk about approaching that at kind of another time. I just did want to touch on, I guess, just the way that you practice this type of stuff. I think I mentioned last time that, when I first started learning all these voicings, I used to do this kind of crazy thing where I just go all the way up and down the neck, and then I, change to my minor chords and go all the way up and down the neck, and then change to my, my minor major chord, and then go all the way up and down the neck and all this kind of stuff. And I found it so exhausting. Like my mind was kind of fried after that. And it's really important that whenever you're practicing music in any way, um, you should really work on it being a really enjoyable experience and a really like it's almost like a meditative experience is the way I kind of like to think about it. And when you finish your music practice, it should feel like you've just had an amazing experience as a listener, almost kind of thing. You should be kind of really immersed in music and feel kind of energized by it. And so, doing things about this shape and then this shape and then this shape and then this shape and then this shape and this shape can be really exhausting. So my advice to that is just start with the first one. Just get that first shape down. You can move it around. Just do anything you can that feels a little bit musical. And then add in the second shape once you're comfortable with that kind of thing. And once you've got the second shape down, go between the first and the second shape. Just little bite-sized things always with your playing to just kind of grow a little bit, get more comfortable, and get your ears as well to come along to the journey to kind of hear these sounds. Even with this major seventh voicing that I've just given you 20 different voicings, all of those voicings sound different and they'll have certain characteristics and stuff. So you're also training your ears to do that. You can also mix and match a bit where if let's say if you're doing these couple of different shapes, and then of those shapes, I'm going to use that original exercise that I was doing in the first lesson. That kind of thing. It doesn't really matter, but all you're doing is kind of moving your fingers around, getting that kind of fluid, facility kind of going on, but keeping it musical and not feeling like you've got to do this exhausting kind of effort. You come back the next day, I've got to do this exhausting effort again. Just always try and be really musical with everything that you're doing. I find now that I do spend quite a bit of time practicing every day still, and I find mostly it's on transcriptions, and I would say that things like what I would do is I'm learning solos along with the recording, and doing things like playing. I know, for example, playing like something like along with an Alan Holdsworth solo at about 40% of the speed, and really soaking up the exact way in which he's doing time and pulling and pushing the phrases and hearing that and internalizing into your playing is a deeply immersive musical experience that keeps me coming back for more kind of thing. And so whatever you're doing, whether it's a transcribing thing or a chord thing or whatever, you should really aim for it to be really musically kind of immersive and exciting. So in terms of the rudimentaries, this is pretty much it. So the PDF I've put up for this lesson it just has all those 20 voicings that you should sort of get across. And each of the voicings lists the note in the chord, whether it's the root, third, flat, fifth or seventh. And there's a little chart there about how to sort of adjust each one. So if you've got a major seventh, then you need to move the seventh to make it to dominant and stuff like that. So there's a bit of information, just a little bit of information about that, and just get comfortable with that. From here, the next things where things get kind of interesting, because if you've basically got those kind of chords down and you can kind of move your fingers around a little bit, then we can get into much more interesting stuff about actually start grabbing some sort of solo from a recording and starting to take it apart and understanding kind of how it works and why it works and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we'll get into next time.